All right, it's another episode of Getting Real in the Field. And this is the show where we talk about all the things that you hate to do, which is following up, making phone calls, talking to people, and just doing your job. And I'm your host, JP Llewellyn, and this is Check. Woo! Yeah. All right, Keck man. We are back with
We are
another
back.
episode. It's
Absolutely.
a Sunday. I'm drinking coffee. I shouldn't be drinking coffee this late, but you know what? It tastes so good.
Really? Did
Yeah,
you
man.
do a pour over tonight or did you like
Dude, I ain't got time for no pour overs. Which is funny because my wife was like in this pour over kick for a little bit.
yeah.
And she's like, oh, well, I've got half calf and it is a pour over. And I'm like, as you told me, like all those little things, the temperature of the water,
Yep.
the food you had before you ate, or before you have coffee, if you had a little mint in your mouth before you take it out, if it's tap water versus distilled water, like changes the flavor of your coffee. I ain't got time for that, dude. That's way
Oh,
over.
come on. Come on. No, I said it's the grind of the
Yes, it's the how much you pay for your grinder, you know. I don't know. I don't think so. But whatever. You know what?
That's
I
for an
mean,
episode of
we're gonna get yelled
the
at by all of
coffee.
our coffee people that watch
Yeah,
the
for
show.
sure, man. Like, that's for that episode is for the coffee channel.
Yes, it is. We should
Uh,
do some special episodes that are completely off topic just for fun.
oh man. I last week was it last week or 2 weekends ago I went to Portland for a just for giggles and just to kind of visit a place because it's just fun. I'm such a I was checking out restaurants there. I was checking out all the the food scene there. But it happened to be the Specialty Coffee Association, um, you know, convention there, and there were thousands of coffee people there. Oh my gosh! And I tried. They got me to try one coffee to pour over,
Hmm.
and it's like, whoa, it was really, really good. And it's just subtle differences, really. I mean, but
Yeah.
coffee's still coffee,
I
right?
don't know that I have a coffee like, sophisticated palate like that. I know if it's sweet, I know if it's bitter, and I know if it's gross. So those are my,
There you go.
those are my
At least you
three.
can tell that part.
There you go. I mean, if you're putting stuff in it anyways, whatever it is. So what do you got for us tonight, Keck?
Okay. Well, hey, so for tonight, uh, let's talk about, and continue on the topic of like calling, right? And so let's kind of discuss perhaps tonight 5 tips for making effective cold calls and focusing on seller leads. And so, what do you think?
I think that's great, man. I am so glad to be with you because it just warms my heart to do these shows with you, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Okay, so since you are the real estate agent, why don't you share with us what's the first tip you think is important when when doing cold callings for like seller leads?
Sure. So there's so many different ways to do cold calls.
Yeah,
However, I think that you need to get yourself a script, and then that script continues to evolve. Or if you're just like everybody else out there using Chat GPT, to create yourself a script that you can use to do your cold calling, or you find yourself a guru that you want to follow and see if there's any scripts that they're using. But I will tell you from my own experiences that some scripts just don't work in your area because you just have a different, mindset, or your audience has a different mindset. But what it does do is it does give you kind of a skeleton or a structure to work with, so that you can like get to the actual purpose of the script, which is to get action from the person on the other side of the phone call.
yeah. No, I absolutely. I mean, I think that having a script to guide you and to stay on track and focus on, on the conversation, the goals of what you want to get, I think is super important because sometimes when you kind of like get somebody live on the call, it's like, and you forget, right? So I think absolutely having a script is important. What's another tip? What's the second tip that you think is important?
So I think also doing your research before you make a call is important. Because sometimes you can subtly drop little things like if you know that they like dogs, you'd be like, yeah, we're looking for a buyer for this house that we have listed. It's perfect for people that have dogs. And then they're like, oh, I've got dogs, or if you're from a certain part of, originally from a certain part of the US or wherever you're from, and you know that they're also from that part, you can also figure out subtle ways to connect with the person that you're talking to. And so that way you can always try to personalize those phone calls as quickly as possible. And then that way you can take it from a cold call to a warm call very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, if you can connect with them better by just, doing your research ahead of time, I think it just helps you to not only sound more informed or but just to have a personal level of connection as well too. I think that's super important. Totally agree, man. Okay, next tip.
All right. So the next tip is just being enthusiastic, like we are on our show, is just really
And
being able to
funny and funny.
connect and funny. Because if you don't know how to do a pour over in a phone call while you're talking to somebody about their dogs and where they're from, then you obviously can be enthusiastic on the phone. So that is a great tip. And that way they also can connect with you quickly because you're personable, you're exciting, you got confidence, and that you're not just dealing with some, if they're going to do business with you, they need to know like in 30 seconds or less that, hey, this is somebody that actually I can connect with versus, being scared on the phone call and being like, oh yeah, that didn't go well. And then you're like, dang it, I missed an opportunity there. So
I
build
mean,
rapport quick. That's what I say.
I totally agree with that, and I cannot underestimate that portion of it, right? Like, I will tell you that, building a connection, people tend to want to work with people that they like and trust. So the more connection that you can, like, connect the dots of, hey, I know we both came from this area of the country, or hey, we just happen to like dogs and so forth, right? Like, I'll share with you one real life example. I had one uh, one agent share with me the story. This this potential client, you know, loved her house so much and wanted to kind of, the entire neighborhood is being torn apart, but she wanted to keep this house as is, even though the house was like, it's worn down. It's from the 40s, in this part of the area where a lot of new houses are being replaced and so forth, right? And she says, I want some agent that can appreciate the architecture and the design of it. And so she happens to know, the architect who designed the original house that she was trying to sell, and she got the listing for it. But guess what? Most likely than not, like, the person buying the house is going to tear it down anyways. So, but because she had that personal connection, that little personal connection just allowed her to kind of, start working with that client. So absolutely. Okay, next tip.
All right. So active listening. One of the things is people love to talk about themselves. So the more you can let them talk, the more they think you're having a connection when in fact they're just talking about themselves. And so that is it's just a fact. And my wife's a psychologist, PhD. She's a card carrying, psychologist. So like she has told me this time and time again, like active listening or reflective listening. So you spend more time listening and less time talking. So like you want to like reflect back to them. So what I hear you saying is, or okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that you would like to blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh yeah. And then they keep going, and then they go right up and they spin them up again and they just keep on going. So that is a good way to really build rapport quickly, is just really like ask questions and listen is a really, really effective way to build rapport.
Yeah. You know what, JP, I hear you on that one, man.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
What you're talking about, really, active listening, it really shows really that you care, right? That you're not, and you're focused on their attention. So I totally can see that helping you to build trust. Finally, what's your last tip that you would share?
All right. So my last tip is follow up, which is what this program is absolutely 100% all about, is follow up, follow up, follow up. The fortune's in the follow up. If you don't follow up, they're going to go with another agent. That's the bottom line. I mean, when you hear somebody say no, no means not right now, unless they say, don't call me ever again. I hate you. I don't like dogs. I like I'm a cat person. Maybe that's not a good reason to call them back. Or, hey, I don't ever plan on selling, die, or anything of that nature. You probably don't want to follow up with them. But if they just say no, and then you can just say, well, just ask permission. Hey, do you mind if I follow up with you in 6 months? They're going to probably say yes. And then make sure you do follow up. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? If you don't do it, then whatever flashy agent card they see, they're going to go with that agent. So, and one of the things with real estate agents, as we all know, is that the worst thing you can do is you forgot to follow up, and then you're like, oh crap. And then you give them a call and they're like, oh man, you just missed it. We're going to be listing our house this weekend. That's the worst. So their situations might change. You don't know, but if you don't call them, you don't know. And so there you go. That's my last tip.
You know what? To be honest with you, I think that is the most important tip of all that most people forget or don't follow through on it, right? Following up definitely can help you build long-term relationships and keep you top of mind. Exactly what you're saying. Oh, sorry, I forgot about you. And then you lose that opportunity. So, well, that's it for our top 5 tips for making effective cold calls to help you get leads in real estate.
All right, man. Well, if anybody wants to know what's going on in your world, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, happy to kind of chat with you about, these topics that we're talking on this podcast, or anything about lead generation as well too, marketing in real estate. If you want to check us out, my website is fieldnotes.ai, or you can reach out to me directly. My phone number is 425-740-0260. And you, JP?
All right. If you want to know what's going on in our world, you could just shoot me a text, 307-772-1184. Text the word real. Happy to have a conversation with you. Otherwise, if you can't remember that, JP flew Ellen. It's like Ellen has the flu. And then you just go on Google and type that in. I'm everywhere. Shoot me a DM. Happy to have a conversation. And that will wrap up another episode of Getting Real in the Field. Peace.